Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 10 of Tank Talk. I'm, of course, your host, Relix. With me, as usual, to my right is Soviets.
Привет.
And just below me here is Nagatron, as usual.
Hello.
And our very special guest from Wargaming.net League, North America, World of Tanks, Gretorp.
Hello.
I think I just nailed, like, the first intro ever to the show.
Good job, man. Those are always the toughest.
It is. It
Those
only,
are always
it only
the
took 10 episodes, but I finally
especially
got
with especially with the WGLNA. Like, if you say that really fast, it could be a huge tongue twister. And for like people like me, I'm actually tongue-tied. Like, my tongue doesn't stretch out that far, which is terrible for casting. I should really actually do surgery on that. That is one of the biggest tongue twisters I could ever do.
I know. Watching last week, I think we all noticed that Wargaming.net League North America World of Tanks is very hard to say for a lot of people.
Yeah, man.
I think that's the first time you've nailed that, too.
Hey, I've been saying that perfectly fine. All right, so today we have a bunch of general news. Obviously, E3 just hit, so we have some console news that obviously came out. We have a couple new things from tests that we can talk about. And then we have some big stuff on tournaments. There was the Wargaming League in Russia just finished up. We have Nvidia Playoffs coming up. We have the Qualifiers for the first Wargaming League North America just finished. And then we have second quals coming up. And then our big discussion I think that we're going to have today is going to be about math. And how good transparency is around math and games and such, and we'll draw some lines between stuff like World of Warcraft and a couple other things. Bad words, I know, but we'll go into a little bit about that. So let's go ahead and start out with the big announcement at E3 that just came out, is we have World of Tanks coming on Xbox 360. They actually already even have a page up, just like our regular World of Tanks one. It's got news and everything already on it, and forums set up for everybody. Obviously, I think it's just in beta right now, but that's pretty big news. I mean, the console scene is absolutely huge. What do you guys think about this hitting up on the consoles?
I guess I'll start. It's really cool. Obviously, it's going to grow the user base like crazy. Here's the problem, though. Okay, Microsoft loves to do things that are so freaking stupid, and one is coming out with the Xbox One. And you might say to yourself, well, Xbox One, it's going to be so good. It's a new system. Wrong. You are so wrong. Because it's a piece of shit. Right? Like, nobody wants to be stalked their entire time when they play. And this is like just really unnecessary. Xbox One, everybody knows, or everybody assumes it's going to crash pretty hard. And I feel like because of that, you don't have like a continuation of the Xbox franchise, basically, because there's not going to be a lot of new material made for Xbox 360. A lot of Microsoft wants you to switch over to the Xbox One. And I feel like that's going to really splinter off the community quite a bit and a lot of PS4 viewers. So I'm just saying that, yes, it's going to be good because it's more viewers, but in general, it could have been more if they didn't screw up so terribly.
Yeah, I've been hearing nothing but whining about the X1 coming out. Like, nobody likes the information that was coming out. So maybe that you're right, that whole missing the continuation. So it's kind of like it's coming at the end of the Xbox 360, and then, in a year, how much of a big deal is it really going to be at that point? I mean, it's big that it's hitting, that specific market, since the console market's so absolutely huge. What do you think, David? Or Soviet? Any comments on the Xbox 360 version?
Any exposure for the game is good, if you ask me. I'd never really want to play on the Xbox because I think consoles are an inferior method of gaming. But I understand why they've got mass appeal and whatnot. You don't have graphics cards to deal with. You don't have drivers or any of the other stuff you have with computers. Less risk of hacking, I guess. Not really, but that's what they like to think. And poor control. But I mean, I get why people are into it, but I think it's not the best system. However, like I said, more exposure for the game is good for everybody. Hopefully that's more people watching streams, watching WGLNA to learn how to play, that kind of thing, and helps the game grow.
Yeah. Maybe it'll be like a gateway drug. You start playing World of Tanks on the console and you're like, oh, this is awesome. I wish I could play it on something that's actually good.
I'm ready to graduate to computer.
Yeah, exactly. What do you think, Soviet? You gonna go grab it for your Xbox?
Xbox. What? I mean, the only console I have is a PS3, and I got it for free with my TV. So, and it's covered with like a layer of dust. I don't even know when was the last time I ran it. So, but I'm not sure if it's operational. But,
It's like a
um,
glorified Roku. You're like Netflix. I'll use it for Netflix, and then you log in, and it's like updating 25 updates every day. You're like, what?
yeah.
This is pointless. I hate this.
I'm just gonna go back to my
So,
computer.
I I'm along the lines of what David said. Pretty much anything is good for the game that exposes World of Tanks a little bit more. Right? Definitely going to try and hype it up a little bit. The other thing is though they're investing a lot of time and development time into this. So perhaps this is just a stepping stone for them to continue expanding the other titles, World of Warplanes and Battleships, into the console market, and perhaps we'll see it in the future on a different platform. Who knows?
There was one interesting thing that I saw from the console when I was watching a bunch of the play for it. Explosions. Like I don't know if this is just like a difference between console players and computer players, but like our explosions, they're pretty realistic and cool looking. And then I don't know if you saw, but the explosions on the Xbox 360 version were like these giant balls of flame that just flew everywhere and were like the most random explosions ever. I just thought it was a funny thing to note when I
Got
was
to
watching
appeal
those
to that
videos.
Call of Duty market.
Yeah, exactly. Explosions. All right, cool. Well, yeah, so we'll be looking for that coming out, but it'll be interesting to see how exactly that affects our market and everything. And obviously, the big thing I was thinking of when you're looking at consoles is you have stuff like Halo and Call of Duty and all those where they have big tournaments, and maybe that'll kind of play more into World of Tanks, maybe getting more money and stuff for running tournaments when you have a whole console generation of it trying to do it at the same time.
Yeah. Actually, Nagatron, you're absolutely right. I mean, I know you're kind of poking fun at it with the Call of Duty, but when you think about it, look at the demographics of World of Tanks. You're looking at 20 plus plus, ranging all the way to 40. You look at the demographics of console games, and you're witnessing a completely new demographic that you're trying to reach to. So, it is going to be those teenagers, those pre-teenagers that you're going to be trying to convince as much as possible. Yes, they're the Call of Duty players, and we're going to try to nab them up, right?
All right, well let's go ahead and jump into some information we got from the test server. Just a couple of snippets. First of all, they released some of the more information on Matchmaker, so they have like an updated Matchmaker chart, which I got some pictures of here, which are kind of interesting. Mostly because you can see exactly how the artillery is going to start playing into it. Obviously, Scout's still getting their higher Matchmaker and really expanded into the higher tiers. But I think this will be really interesting as an artillery player playing something with the same tier and being top tier in some matches. So I think it'll be fun to see exactly how this all games out when you're playing as artillery. What do you guys think about at least this initial changes for the Matchmaker matching up?
I touched on this a little bit last week, but I think it's going to seriously affect tiers 9 and 10 most off. I know 9 has some sort of new, really overpowered artillery. I think it's the American one.
The M something.
I don't know,
fives.
nor do I really care what it's called because it's tier 9 and 10. But you're going to get, like right now you have like 10 tier 10s out of 15 in the beginning of a match. Well, one or two of those guys is artillery. And if they can't do it, that's two of your tier 10s that are useless. So artillery is more pivotal than ever before because you're wasting tier 10 slots on them if they're not playing well.
Useless if it's a bad player in it, not useless in general, right? Because artillery wasn't affected
Doesn't
that
artillery
bad.
have more utility than, say, a 62A? No, not even close.
That's true.
62A in the right hands versus an artillery in the right hands. I don't know, man. Depends.
Depends on the map. It can go either way sometimes. Then we also have actually, Soviet. Do you have anything you want to say about?
The amount of times you said artillery, like my spam filter went off, so I just
So you just tuned me
automatically
out?
muted, and it just
What a hater! What a hater! The other piece of it that we have some like more specific ones to certain tanks, and the one biggest one I noted here is the 112 that'll be coming out. So we have the new Chinese premium heavy that's coming out, and it'll get preferred matchmaking. So it'll be either tier 8 or tier 9. I haven't seen any stats for it yet, but it seems like it's going to be a good idea. I've been hearing a lot about the 110 being a pretty good tank for tournaments. We haven't used it at all yet, really. So we haven't, I don't think, gotten to full effectiveness of it, but
I
it'll
got
be
one
nice
last
having.
week.
Oh, you did? What have you
Yeah.
thought about it so far?
It's all right.
Do you think you'll be getting a 112 to level your crew for it?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'll definitely get every tier 8 premium that comes out, but as far as using it in tournaments, I don't know.
Well, at least we know it gets preferred matchmaking, so we don't get anything silly like what was it, the low that gets put into higher battles or something like that. I think it was the low that went into a little bit higher.
The low and T34 get all the way up to 10, but I think
Yeah.
that's getting fixed as well. They're going to get bumped down to 8, 9,
Really?
and probably adjusted a little bit because the low with preferred matchmaking would be the most overpowered premium ever.
Yeah. It'd be good times. Love that tank. And the other thing we got information on, obviously everybody's been talking about the super Pershing. So that's going to get dumped out of the, or supposedly going to get dumped out of the
Gift shop
Yeah, gift shop. There we go.
and
For-
the store in
Yeah.
game.
Yeah. Because of some of the reworking of the armor, that's supposed to make it not as good. But we did hear some rumors this week that were, like, it was a big rumor, and then it got, well, it wasn't really a rumor. I can't remember. I think it was, I don't know if it was Vulture that said it or somebody else, but they said it, and then they, like, took it back, like, oh, never, we're just thinking about it. But they're thinking about upping the penetration of the Super Pershing, which will be really big for anybody that owns it, because penetration on it right now kind of sucks for
180.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
Yeah, for just about everything. I think they were talking about going up to 200 was what I last saw, so that could be good if it at least comes back with that a little bit more penetration, but I don't know. We'll see. I like my Super Pershing. David hates it unless he has to farm in it. And then he kills
It's
everybody.
a bad
and
tank. It's a bad tank.
We're all dead and he's still alive and bossing it in that thing. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into tournaments because I know Soviet's crying right now that we're not talking about anything but tournaments right now. So let's go ahead and start out by talking about the Wargaming League finals that just happened, which there was like tons of controversy.
Qualifiers.
Was it qualifiers? I thought it was the actual finals for that.
No, he's talking about the
Russia.
Golden League.
The Golden
in
League.
Russia.
Oh, the Golden League.
We're not to that
These
one
are
yet.
tanks.
We're not to that one yet. Did you catch that Gretorp at all? The finals
I
for the Russian one?
caught a little bit of it. I saw there were a couple of draws, and that's about it.
You catch the actual finals day? There's a little bit more than a couple draws.
Yeah, I know. I caught very few games of it. I wasn't able to because of real life stuff.
Yeah. Soviet, you caught it though, all of it, I assume. Mr.
Yeah.
I watch every replay. What did you think about those finals between the big Russian titans?
It was interesting map selection. So it came down to, I believe, Ensk, then it was Abbey, right? And then it was Cliffs. Oh, no, Lakeville. Lakeville and,
yeah.
And Cliffs. It was really surprising that the first final comes down to being decided on maps such as Cliffs, something that has never been really used in tournament play up until, from the rumor that I know, is Wargaming kind of asked the league to run Cliffs as one of the maps for Golden League, and this was the first time. The map itself is definitely better now that we have physics. We have all these abilities to come up the hill, come down the hill, all that stuff. But at the same time, it's a little bit, it's played kind of one-dimensionally by a lot of teams. So it's like 1-2 line and 3-4 line are pretty much what are used. The entire outside of the the lighthouse is just ignored most of the time.
It's too far away.
As it should be.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, the finals were long, and I didn't get much sleep. And by the time they were done, I didn't even care who was gonna win. But, well, I'm really impressed with New Star. Really up and coming team. I hope they stick together. They keep going at it. Really, just needed a hair more composure, I think, and they would have been able to at least put up even a better fight. But congratulations to Rush, and I'm looking forward to their next announcement.
It was Gra that New Star beat out, right? That was like the big matches. I think everybody was going for Gra during that entire thing, and it was kind of surprising to see them take over. And surprising and good to see them take over. So it's nice to see at least that movement around with who's beating who. How many draws I think that was like the big controversy. Is there was just I mean, obviously this is the big final, so there's lots of pressure. But the whole drawing thing seems to have sparked this huge debate all over the place on, World of Tanks
Well,
being viable for tournaments and draws being such a big issue and what kind of rules we can put in. What do you think about that whole situation?
it was, I think, 5 or 6 draws. I think it was either 8 total games on Ensk or 7 games. 2 games resulted in wins for opposite teams. So one, the score was tied at 1-1, and then it was various draws sprinkled in there. It was an interesting decision. And I wonder if it's a bad precedent to set. And Andre, I don't know if you actually followed it, but basically what happened was they went 1-1 in the early stages, and then I guess both teams kind of got afraid to go down another game because it's just a deciding game, and you're in the finals. And Rush, in my opinion, just said, you know what, we're gonna camp like crazy, and they basically kept doing this. They kept going into the city and just hiding completely, not even like trying to set traps or anything like that. And same with New Star. New Star having an arty, I think they could have been playing a little bit more aggressive with the 50-2, their scout, but still both teams just ended up camping each other, and everybody was like, well, you know what, if you're not moving, I'm not moving. And they just sat there for 3 hours straight. And after that, the league officials came out and they said, okay, listen, let's just call it a draw on this map and go to the next map, rotate to the next round. And I mean, for a team like New Star, I know New Star prides themselves on playing on Ensk. That is one of their main maps. I think it kind of hurt them in the long run because, of course, after that, they lost. Now that we know the future, right? I mean, the past.
Right.
Yeah. I can't really go into much detail about it, but I can tell you that at the studio, we spent about three or 4 days straight just talking about what we can do to implement a system where that doesn't exist, because we understand, especially, that draws are part of the game. And at the same time, you don't want to push a certain hand to kind of expose, particular vulnerabilities in styles for each team. So we can't be like, oh, well, if you draw 3 times and you pick the map, you lose. That's not going to work, right? Because it's just going to go draw, and then, well, we know they're coming at us. So, but I can tell you that we've talked about it multiple times. I honestly don't know what we're going to do particularly about it, but I know there's maybe 5 or 6 ideas floating around in Ben's head, and he's going to talk to the higher ups and see what is plausible even. But we are actively trying to not have that happen, where it is 7 draws in a row. It can go 1-2 draws, whatever, but we don't want something ridiculous where, honestly, it's just detrimental to not only the players, in my opinion, and but also the viewers, of course.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we talked about this a little bit last week when we were talking about officials and the power they have, because we had a similar situation here. I think 2-3 weeks ago, where we had a long string of draws, and really our officials just didn't have the ability, I guess, to really make that call to just say, this is passive play, these both are out, or this doesn't go like that. So I'll be very interested to see what you guys end up coming up with for the WGLNA, because obviously that's going to affect all of us pretty big. So
Yeah.
but I think it's definitely a serious problem, and encouraging, not having passive play is going to be a tough thing, I think, for a lot of
And
teams.
just to let you know, the only people that are really talking about it, and the only people we really let talk about it, are people that have been competitive before. So some people that do have the disconnect, our producers or directors, that kind of thing. We try to keep them out of the conversation as much as possible, because we understand the complexity of a best of 5 series and how it can affect you. Let's say if a draw, you are forced to attack or you're forced to defend or whatever that might be. We understand how it sets a tone in your games, and it could overall affect the outcome, and we don't want that to happen. We want to discriminate the best, right? That's what a tournament does. It discriminates who is the best team or best player in the set of players. And that's what our main objective is to do. We're trying to do that, and I promise we'll get Even Rotterdam's helping out. I promise. We're trying to get the best possible solution to where we have to find a middle ground, right? We have to say, okay, we can't have so many draws, but we have to still do something about this.
Cool. Well, let's go ahead and get off the subject of the RU finals now. We'll go ahead and move on to our next subject, which is the Nvidia Playoffs, which start, I believe, Thursday. So really looking forward to finally getting into the bracket play there. I've got the bracket up here. I figured we'd take a look at the teams, talk a little bit about what we're looking forward to coming into them, and we can talk a little bit about the cast that me and Nagatron are going to be doing for it. That'll hopefully be even like an ounce as good of what the War Gaming League North America do. You know, we now have someone to aspire to in North America. So let me go ahead and bring those up here and make sure that you can actually see them all. Why don't you want to be bigger?
That's what she said. Sorry.
And here I am being totally prepared, just like usual. There we go. Okay, that didn't do it. That did it. All right. I am so good at this stuff. So here we have all the teams. Just kind of looking down some of the ones that jumped out to me. We have like MOT4 versus the Gorilla Guys. We had, let's see, it was River of Blood versus Simplistic, which would be a really good battle. Obviously, River of Blood really proving quite a bit recently. We have us, Fulcrum Gaming versus Cazadors. Cazadors who I believe were the only ones to take rounds from us in the last league. Am I right in saying that?
15th anniversary.
15th anniversary, right. So that'll be a really interesting clash again there. We also had Simpas in our bracket, so later on in the bracket we're going to have another big one. It seems like we are always meeting them at some point. So I think we have a lot of really good battles to look forward to here, especially as the bracket proceeds on. I mean, there's going to be a lot of really close battles here. What are you guys thinking about the playoffs coming up here?
Nagatron?
Well, thankfully it's double elimination. So, you know, there's not a whole lot of things you can complain about in a double elimination bracket, because no matter what happens, whatever weird circumstance you get or bad pairing you get, you at least have the second chance to fight your way out. Which, especially in pairings like ours with, you know, us versus Cazadors, I don't think either of us would really deserve to go out in the first round at all in a single elim. So it's good that one of us is going to have that as a little bit of vindication or retribution later on. Ultimate playoffs, hard to decide. This training room run, pick your own map kind of thing is a little different from what we've been doing lately. And I'm glad it's 3 battles now instead of 2. So I don't have any predictions on it. I just like this phase of the tournament a lot more than the last phase, because anytime you get those 2 wins to advance, my skin starts to crawl. I don't know how many times I or the team that I'm playing against gets down by 2 and then comes back on a hot 3 streak. Like, that happens a lot. So 2 matches is nothing, 3 matches is a lot, most of the time. Granted, any team that's really good doesn't want to lose any matches, let alone 2.
I still see it as best of 3.
That's what I said, first of 3.
Oh.
Well, on the brackets, on the page, North American, South American brackets, you can see that round of 32, and it says best of 3, and then it says Ensk.
Yeah, at the very top it does that best of 3.
Okay, then I take it all back. This part still kind of sucks.
Yeah. I at least like
That's lame.
I think it's interesting a team being able to pick the specific map they're going to be on next, because then that team gets to say, like, you know, we have really good artillery, we're really good at scouts, I'm going to bring steps in. And I think those make interesting choices. What have you thought about it, Soviet, going into this?
Nvidia?
Yeah.
It's, well, I'm seeing a lot of teams actually taking this tournament serious, which is kind of well, a good thing, but at the same time, I'm surprised that they weren't taking the other tournament serious. We had Major League series going on earlier. That was a great warm up, great build up to what WGLNA is going to be here in a month, and. Of course, we had the 15th year anniversary tournament. That was a quick little tournament, but still saw a lot of teams not even register for that one. Some of the bigger names, but I guess money on the line. GeForce, it's going to be a first, I guess, big tournament. It's most likely going to be close to finish by the time WGLNA starts, right? Well, I'm making sure that I bring my A game. I'm sure the rest of our team is going to be working on that as well. So we'll see how it goes. The brackets look very interesting. With the bottom part of the bracket, as you saw, we have Cazadores, we have a River of Blood as well, right before Simp. So we will be, well, most likely River of Blood. We'll see how they do.
Club Stars are in there.
Pop Stars, yeah. So lots of good teams in that bottom bracket. The top bracket, Fate's Chosen has been pretty good. They did get a preferential seating because of I think one of the teams didn't showed up actually for the fights, and so they did play 2 battles, and that's why they got the seated over Simp. While Simp had a forfeit, one of the teams forfeited to them, so they didn't play 2 battles. The way Nvidia did it, and I hope WGLNA doesn't do this, but of course it's a completely different setup.
You hear this, Gretorp?
Mike is...
You're muted, bud.
Oops.
Ah, there you go.
We're actually going to switch the rules to only Artie play, and it's a 35-point limit.
7v7 Artie.
Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, I did go back and look at the brackets here. It is best of 3.
Mm-hmm.
And here's an interesting question. What do you guys think about this dedicated third map business?
That's kind of weird. I mean, I get it from the standpoint of, one team gets to pick one, another team gets to pick one, and then there's just a default map as a third. That way it's kind of like even. 2 teams get to pick. But
it's what I think it is they're trying to do the whole thing where it's like, you play on your home court, away court, and then neutral field. And the neutral field is decided for you so that and it's it's preset, so you can't really pick a map, or no team gets an advantage unless, of course you prepare for it.
If you ask me though, if that's your goal, then I would say add in a map that isn't typically in pool play or that's brand new. In our case, Airfield is now in the league, but none of us have ever played it in 742 yet. So that would be a perfect third map decider. As it is now, with it rotating and with it being maps that are part of the regular pool anyways, it kind of screws some teams over. What if the team you're playing against is weak on 2 specific maps, but one of those maps is the third one, and you're trying and he sneaks one out because you mess up, and then the other one you pull out. But you see what I'm saying? You do play it in the end anyways. So...
But you get to pick the map.
I'm going to play the other way around and say,
but
if I'm looking to discriminate the best team, and not the best team on 3 maps, but the best team on my entire map pool, why don't I add in every single map and make it that third map every single time, unless you go 2-0? Then I will for sure get a team that is well-rounded in all the maps and that can play them. I'm not saying I agree with that, but I can see that thought process going into it, where it's like, okay, well, yeah, you're good on 3 maps. You win one, you lose one, and then you win one, and you always choose, let's say, the same maps, or you always get to those same maps somehow or another. It might be that thought process instead.
I figured out a better way of explaining what I was trying to say earlier, because that didn't make any sense. Say, for example, you as a team have one map that you're very good on. Say it's Lakeville or something, but Lakeville's the third one. So you're trying to get that map in for your choice, but you can't because your choice is already taken in the third map. But you play twice, they win the first 2, and then you never get to play Lakeville. Whereas you would have won Lakeville once, and then maybe that third game...
Then you're a bad team.
Agreed. Don't get me wrong. You shouldn't have only one map, but I don't like being... You could pick whatever map you want, but this one.
So
not that one. Not today.
So let me put it to you this way. So the way Wargaming League North America is doing it, and correct me if I'm wrong, Gretorp, is you have a full map selection, and then it's one team says we're not playing this, the next team says we're not playing this, and then they rotate. I don't remember how many maps get ended up taking out, and then you just play what's left. Do you
Correct.
Do you prefer that format, where you aren't necessarily even picking the map, you're just picking which ones aren't played?
Elimination. Like Golden
Map
League,
bans.
right?
So it'd be like you have 8 maps. You're going to play 3 games, right? So there would be, well, that doesn't work, right? Because then there's map bans are uneven.
It's coin toss, and then you veto one apiece until you're left with one left. Okay, the person that I think chooses the map, the final map of the two. So obviously there's going to be 2 maps left. Someone vetoes or picks the other map. The other team picks spawning positions, and then loser picks map. All maps are still in the map pool.
Okay, so it's just the first round that you do that elimination thing, and then
Correct.
everything after that is just the next team picks whatever map they want.
Correct.
Huh.
And then it's like I cut the bread and then you choose the slice type of deal, where it's if you choose an overpowered map, if there is some sort of large imbalance on one map or another that enters the metagame midway through the season, if you choose to pick that map, well, the other team's going to choose the side that's beneficial to them. So it kind of puts the ball in, like, I guess, the teams and them knowing their preparation and your opponent's preparation and seeing what they do based on that.
So then I guess the Nvidia thing is similar, just in the way that the first 2 maps are picked by the 2 teams. It's just the third team you don't get an option for. So it's fairly similar. Do you think the elimination thing works a little bit better, David? Nagatron?
Yeah, definitely.
Just that. Okay. Well,
Still like it to be 3 wins to advance, but
Yeah.
whatever.
All right. Well, it's interesting nonetheless.
As long as it's streamlined, that's one thing I think we'll see in WGLNA. It's got to be quick. If we're going to be like eliminating maps for like 30 minutes before match every time, going through 8 maps and they're like, oh my god, Fulcrum is really good at this, but what if we pick this? But then which side do we pick? All that stuff, and it becomes like a 20-minute process instead
Correct.
of
Yeah, that's actually something I brought up directly to Ben, and he said we are 100% going to be streamlined. Like, the qualifiers gave us good analysis of, the overall general public and how slow they are to pick their stuff, not only their maps but their lineups. And we know that won't fly in the regular season, so we are going to make every step to speed that up and accommodate not only the players but the viewers. So I'm sure I know things are set in stone behind the scenes that I don't know about. I'm just a peon over here.
Cool. Well, let's actually go ahead and jump off Nvidia, and we'll go into the Wargaming League stuff. We'll talk about the qualifier results and all that. And actually, let's jump into the qualifier results, and we'll talk a little bit more about the league specifically. We'll find out a little bit more about Gretorp and all that. So let's first take a look at the first results here from the qualifiers. So we have the first 4 teams that are going to be joining the 8 that won in the major leagues. So we have More Golds, Scurry Hard, Cazadors, and River of Blood. What do you guys think of that lineup so far?
Other than more golds, I think all of the teams we've pretty much could have predicted going in. I think all of us have played and have a lot of respect, as a team and as players against those teams. Cazadores, River of Blood definitely deserve to be in the major leagues, but just unfortunate circumstances, and they got eliminated from that tournament. Ended up not participating in the majors, but they would definitely be in the top 5 teams in the majors if the majors were done. So great qualifiers. It was a lot of fun to watch, and WGLNA set an awesome standard there, just way up there.
Yeah. What did you think about the play of River Blood and a few of those teams, Nagatron, throughout the streams? I know you watched them along with everybody else. Did you think that they seemed like they were on a pretty high level with with their strategies and tactics as we were watching them go through, Runeberg and all those maps?
Yeah, River of Blood especially. Most of the teams that qualified did show a good amount of like understanding of the maps and whatnot. I think all of them also showed a little bit of rough edges here and there. It's kind of hard to get used to 742 and the flow of everything. So sometimes, but sometimes everybody slows down or gets too hesitant or just moves everything in one area, things like that. But even practice teams do that as well. So I really think, in particular, that River of Blood and Cazadors will step up as league play goes on. They'll probably finish fairly high in League 1. If they don't, which I think is a pretty big if, then they'll definitely be back League 2 because they'll have enough experience under their belts at that point where I'd really expect them to be rocking and rolling at that point.
Yeah, definitely. Gretorp, what did you think about casting these teams going through it? I know this isn't like your very first exposure to World of Tanks, but what was it like seeing some of this professional play going on and getting a little bit more familiar with what everybody's doing?
It was really cool. Well, what I was really worried about, and this was just my insecurities, was that I would get into this and I wouldn't be able to tell who was a professional team and who was like either a mediocre team or not even that great team. Because honestly, I didn't know if I can really judge skill quickly. And thank God for Rootkill, man, because he held all of our hands this week. We did a lot of work, and he helped us a lot in understanding what's going on with the games. And casting was just so much fun, man. Like, it was so much fun. Some of the scenarios that happened were so tense. I was really into it. I just really, really enjoyed it. I thought the teams that got through were very deserving. And yeah, I mean, the only team that I was really sad about was EC not qualifying, but I'm sure they're going to qualify next qualifier.
If
next
anything,
week.
just to trip up you guys saying their name over and over, right?
Oh my God, screw that, man. God, English is my second language, or at least that's what I tell everybody. So
Yeah.
I don't want to say Urmagerd Curver every single time.
Yeah.
It sounds so goofy.
Rue was your guys' savior when he said, just call him EC. Just call him EC. As everybody just butchers their name over and over again.
Yeah. And I also let, the Russian map, I'm not going to say it, but I always let like Clutch or Frodan say, I was like, yeah, go ahead, hang yourself, guys. It sounds good.
Once more for the record, Soviet.
Prokhorovka.
There you go.
Yeah, good luck.
Every time you guys would say that on the stream, I would be thinking, I wonder if Soviet heard that.
It was a fun evening.
I just know how to say thank you and you're welcome in Russian. That's about it.
That's all you
And
need.
I can't even say
we'll
that well.
expand your vocabulary as we go, so don't you worry.
Spasiba.
Yeah.
What else?
So the other big thing we have qualifiers. There is going to be a second round of qualifiers for everybody that didn't make it into the first one. The registration for it is going on right now. So make sure if you want to get a team in there, you get them in there now. The cutoff date is Sunday, June 16th. I don't know at what time, so you should do it sooner than that day. Yeah. So it'll be another of the top 4 people from that one that get in. So I'll be very interested to see which 4 end up getting into there. I'm thinking we'll see EC again. Remember, God Irvin. They'll be there, I think.
Do we know how the teams are going to, let's say, first season is done, do the bottom X amount of teams drop out, or how does that going to happen? Is there going to be circulation? Is there going to be another qualifier, or is this too far in the future?
That is a great segue to our conversation about Wargaming League North America World of Tanks.
Yes, there will most likely be a qualifier. I don't know how many teams are...
Go ahead.
What?
Go ahead. We're already talking about WGLNA, but whatever.
We were talking about the regular qualifiers. I had to, break it into the next part. You can't just break into the next part with a question. There's order to everything.
All right, Gretorp.
Yes, there will be qualifiers. Season 2 will not be the same as Season 1 in terms of the teams that will be there. As far as how many, I have no clue. Whether it's 4, whether it's 8, whether it's 12. I really don't know. That's going to be up to Ben. what I probably predict, and this is just my opinion, it's probably going to be around 8. I would say, plus or minus 4 right there. Probably not plus 4, plus 2, I would say, anything.
Do you think it'll be like another top 8 invitational type thing again, like it was for this one with the majors, or like pulling straight out of your season?
Yeah, I think it's probably going to be top 8. I don't know what's released, so I'm not going to say anything more in case I ruin everything.
Cool.
I have to actually find out what's released. That's the problem. Like I forget, because I knew about the Xbox thing for a couple months now, but obviously I couldn't say it. So when you were like, "Oh yeah, it got released," I was like, "Oh yeah, yeah." Right.
I know what's been released in the WGLNA channel, and I don't think that is NDA, as far as I understand.
Okay.
So
what do you know now?
hopefully we're not overstepping any bounds, but maybe this is. Well, it should be okay to tell. This was what I heard last, and I guess it's subject to change. But they were going to separate the league of 16 into 2 groups of 8, based on seeding from the previous league, the Major League. And then 1 through 4, when all 8 of those teams are done playing, 1 through 4 from each team, or 1 through 3 from each team, is automatically invited, or each group, and then 4 and 5 from each group fight each other. So 4 from Group A and 5 from Group B fight each other. 4 from Group B and 5 from Group A fight each other, and the winner of those 2 battles goes to it as well. So there'd be 8 teams total in the finals, duking it out, and that's last I heard.
I don't want to confirm or deny that, but that makes a lot of sense if it was to be played in 3 weeks. I'll just say that.
Yeah. You're all hesitant to confirm or deny it. You just let me let go of possibly sensitive information.
Yeah, but see, I didn't release it. You did. So you're the one getting in trouble.
So
cutthroat.
Here's a question along those same lines then, for the current league, that is from Captain Blood from the forums. Thanks for leaving a question, Captain Blood. So, and I don't think I read this anywhere. Said, not sure if this is in the rules, but how many teams actually go to Vegas for this first season? It seemed like all 16 teams in the Russian league were playing live, but I doubt there's going to be that many flights for that many teams. So do we know how many people are actually going to be meeting in Vegas for the finals for this? Or can you say?
I have no clue.
Okay.
Well, I know the exact number, but I can say it's not 16.
Okay. Is it 2?
It's not 16 plus or minus 16.
It's not 2.
It's not 2. Okay. Okay. So that could potentially be a really big thing then.
Yeah, it can.
And I think that'll be extremely interesting if it's more than 2
I think
teams.
it'll be a lot of fun seeing you guys there.
Cool. Very cool.
Assumptions already.
So should that be the case, I think a lot of teams should be really practicing hard to get into the finals. 'Cause this is a big deal, and you're going to have a great time if you make it into whatever the theoretical amount of teams are that go. So yeah, that's a big deal. Why don't I just well, okay. First of all, let's go ahead and tackle this. So, Gretorp, I introduced you in the beginning here. Let's talk a little about you. Obviously, you're working for Wargaming League North America, World of Tanks. You're a caster on there. Can you tell us a little about what you're going to be doing with the league? Maybe where you're from? Because not everybody in World of Tanks knows who you are, but everybody should know who you are.
Yeah, my name's Andre. I grew up in New Jersey, the greatest place in the world. If you've ever seen a show called The Jersey Shore, that's where I'm from. I moved over here to California, and that's Rotterdam, by the way. And I've been casting ever since February 4th, 2011, at least professional casting. I've casted maybe years and years before that. I was a professional StarCraft or semi-pro StarCraft Brood War player. I was a professional StarCraft 2 player in Wings of Liberty, and I'm still ranked top 0.1% StarCraft 2, even though I haven't been able to play in quite a long time. So maybe it's a little bit larger. I came into World of Tanks, obviously, about, oh gosh, how long have we been doing World of Tanks now? Maybe 3 months, 4 months, something like that. 3 plus about 3 or 4 months. I knew about World of Tanks way before that, though, because Russ is the CEO of the company is an avid gamer of World of Tanks. And since then, we've been grinding a ton of games, and we've been sitting on YouTube a lot, and I've been staring at some wiki tanks and just going over situations and scenarios. And that's it, man. I just cast and look at numbers. Oh, I guess I should tell my background too. I graduated with a statistics and actuary science degree, so I was supposed to be working in insurance, calculating all those numbers when you die and stuff like that. And I said that wasn't fun, so I stopped doing that in 2011, end of 2010. And here I am doing statistics for video games. How cool is that, right?
This is the math guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I assume then we can start expecting, to see cool statistics out of the league and all that kind of stuff. That's going to be one of your
I hope
focuses.
so. What I'm trying to do, I'm trying to knock on Ben's door and really get me everything that honestly, that World of Tanks produces. Like, I would love to see average numbers across, all servers and stuff like that. And I'm ultimately looking to find and be so detailed that I can do simulations without having to play the game. I think that's probably the most important thing. Right now, I think the game is very young. I see a lot of inefficiencies in just like standard play that I think there should be things that... okay, I'll just give you an example. Like, there's so many times in the qualifiers that I see, let's say, a tank with less than 100 health or less than 50 health or something like that. It's something ridiculous. And I think situations like that really shouldn't happen because there should be expected values. And even though all of it is RNG and you can get really bad rolls, I think overall, I mean, you're still hitting a tank, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times to the point where that RNG is going to be standardized a lot. So the fact that you're bringing them down to 50 life means either you got terrible rolls, assuming you have perfect efficiency, you have terrible rolls, or you're not hitting them with the right tanks.
So you sound like you're
little things like...
You sound like you're a pretty big proponent of limited RNG. I know that's been like a
No,
big stickler.
I love RNG.
Okay.
I think RNG is great because, honestly, if you give it enough times, if a tank is getting hit, even if it's a small sample, like 8 times or like 10 times, it will still stay within, 1 to 2 standard deviations, which is pretty consistent. You can guarantee, you can kind of realize that that damage pretty consistently, and it'll swing. But like, let's say, I know it falls within this range, 100 to 200, and it, my kill range is going to be 40 and above, right? And then let's just say it is a standard normal distribution. So you're looking at like a little bit more than 70%, maybe even 75% of the time you're going to get that. Do you want that type of risk? Like, maybe you should be altering, which guns you're using or which tanks you're using. And I think that's something that's super, super important that really isn't delved into. I mean, like, I have other things that I have in the back of my mind, but this is all going to require like so much data, which I'm trying to get Ben to get me. Hopefully it happens.
So you're thinking like player choice needs to have more of an effect on it? Like, I equip this specific gun because I know I have these better chances? Is that what you mean by it? Or just like...
Like, okay, I'll give you an example. Like, if I were to direct a World of Tanks team, how I would want to do it is like a baseball team, right? Like, instead of saying, yeah, you're really good in this situation, blah, 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 I'm going to assign you a number for the situation. So 70% of the time in your AMX 1390 or in your AMX 5100, you're going to actually hit. Whereas you're trash, you're only getting 40%. Or you over here, you can get 90% of the time. And of those 90%, what is your average damage dealt for that particular tank that you're attacking? And then everything's going to be recorded. I think that's going to be important because then you would chuck that into kind of like... I wish I had something to show you guys.
Basically,
it's
what
not
you're
an
promoting
equation.
is like the standard metric approach to modern baseball, where rather than going for the guys that hit homers a lot, it's not about homers. It's not about
Correct.
anything like that. It's about hitting the ball and gaining bases. And if your whole team
Correct.
averages one base most of the time, well, when you add that up, they're going to start making runs because they're not
Correct.
getting out. They're getting on base. So if you have a team of everybody and all they do is get on one base, technically that should rack up quite a bit as time goes on.
Correct.
I think in tanks, it's a little bit different than that.
No, I know it's a little bit different than that, but I think like you guys have shown very clearly that you can reduce the variance like crazy and be a very consistent team, right? Like that's basically how it works out. You guys are playing at a much more optimal way, and you are able to reduce the variance so much that RNG doesn't matter. But I think
as
there
much
is
as possible, yes.
Yes. I think there is more layers to reducing variance with just simple tank selection. I mean, so many times you know when you're being outdrafted or you are outdrafting your opponents, but we don't know that in a quantifiable way yet. And like the slight deviations and slight changes in your tank selection, if you choose a 5100 over a 69 or something like that, I mean, we don't know a quantifiable way, assuming
The
your game
impact.
plan to really substantiate, yes, I should choose this tank, or no, I shouldn't choose this tank. I think that's really important because you have to, that's going to rely on your plan as well, right? Like, if your plan is to have a battle in this particular section, well, what is the overall occurrences of me being able to get off all my shots in this period of time? What is the average time of a battle that goes on in this particular section? Is it going to be a corner game and it just keeps going back and forth, or is it going to be a really short game where it's I'm not saying game, but like that individual battle is going to be maybe 10, 15 seconds or 30 to 40 seconds based on, cover, based on, expected penetrations, whatever it might be. There's so many different variables that we have to look at, but it can all be simulated. That's what I'm trying to say. It can all be simulated. The numbers are out there. We have the ability to see ranges, right? We can just say, we understand that there's armor efficiency, right? Especially based on angle, but we can see the large ranges of, okay, the majority of my attacks might be penning them at a 30% value. We don't know that. I'm just making it up. But we know the range of 0 to 60. And then we know it fills in between that normally. Sometimes it will ricochet and you'll get an awful shot. Sometimes it won't. But that's really important, and that needs to be put in there. And what I'm saying is all of this needs to be quantified a lot more so that we can establish a better frame when we're going to just tank selection. I think that's super, super important. I put so much emphasis on the drafting, but of course our overall, I think, plans aren't there yet not for you guys, don't get me wrong, but for the majority of the teams.
So in general, this is some pretty high level stuff, especially for where we are in the game right now. Obviously, this is huge in StarCraft, right? Where it's like every decision you make in the first couple of minutes is having a ripple effect on everything else down the road. And if you can take a metric approach to these things, then you know for certain what kind of risk you're taking or what kind of benefit you're getting out of it. In tanks, I wouldn't say that it wouldn't apply because obviously math always applies, especially statistics. I would say the way it would probably be most used for us in this instance is particularly more next patch when everything is in a closer
it's going to be
standard
normal
deviation.
Yeah.
I don't know. I understand the concepts of a lot of this stuff, and I forgot the terms for it a long time ago. That's back when I was in college. So for us, it would be more like, what do these numbers mean in this location of the map? So that we would take it and we would add another layer to it. So it'd be like engagements on this corner with the teams with these kinds of bounce rates or damage per minute or hit point pools. Which team in which position comes out on top more often? And it would have to be that much gathered data for it to be particularly useful for us, which I think a lot of people do naturally. They just look at everything, and it's like, well, a lot of the time when we go to that corner, the person on this side wins, and that's the same exact thing we're talking about, except you're proving it with math, so there is no subjective opinion there. It's not an anecdotal evidence. It's real. The numbers say it's true. We don't have the data there yet.
The situations you want to be targeting, though, are When I come here to this corner, it's 50-50. And
Right, so then-
that's
so then
where you need to break it down, right? Because more than likely, it's not 50-50, right? World of Tanks is just way too random at this point for a situation to be 50-50 because the map design is not symmetrical. So this is where even a 55-45, you're still going to have positive EV, and you're still going to be advancing more so than not, even if it is that extra 10% over your opponent.
Describe EV real quick.
Expected value, which is if I simulate the same occurrence 100 times, 55 to 45, I would be winning. That's positive EV. It doesn't have to be 55. It can be 90 times out of the 100. And that's how I think a lot of, poker works like that a lot of the time. StarCraft, not so much, but it can happen, and we use that a lot.
I think poker's actually a fantastic example there.
Oh, yes.
Very statistically driven game, but playing the statistics all the time. Sometimes you just get screwed because the other guy, you know, he nailed it on the river or whatever version of poker you're playing. What do you guys think, Soviet Relics? Can you see this kind of statistic approach being something that we start getting into something that's more important later, or is this too much math for you guys?
As a clicker, Relics is probably like, oh my god, I just clicked the button. I have no idea.
It's going to be even more huge for him, though,
my range
because
is
it's like the probability of somebody showing up in this spot when they're in this spot over here is, 75%. Well, he better be aiming there, and as soon as that guy shows up, he better get shot.
Yeah.
If we know those numbers,
I think honestly, like people like you and people like professional players, I know it sounds crazy, but they shouldn't be working on that because the amount of resources that you have to commit to doing this type of analysis over playing the game does not benefit you.
Right.
Whereas if I'm an outsider and I'm doing it independently of you and then feeding you the information, that's when it's going to be most optimal.
well, that's exactly what I'm talking about.
For us as players, it comes natural. We
Correct.
we are able to swing those percentages a lot quicker than let's say by the time you realize let's say we're at a corner. In our minds, we're already seeing 2 steps ahead, and we're readjusting based on the experiences and the scrimmages, the practices, everything that has come before that single match can affect the decision that we make as a team in that particular circumstance, and that can either swing the percentages in our favor. Let's say the expected value, the expected outcome in that circumstance, or in the opposite value. If it's a bad mistake, if morally we're defeated as a team or something, anything can happen. One thing I do like about the upcoming patch, and we unfortunately, Gretorp, we didn't have you on the show. I think you would have enjoyed that one. World of Tanks is switching to Sigma 2.3, I think, is the latest actual number. So for standard deviation, is going to be cut at 2.3, and it's still going to leave just a little bit. I think it's, if I'm not mistaken, it's like 12% chance that you're going to be hitting the outliers of your, averages. You're going to be hitting the absolute minimum or the absolute maximum. Same with accuracy. You're going to be hitting the absolute maximum way off, or you have a 10% chance hitting dead on.
About the reticle?
The reticle,
the reticle is 2.3 standard deviations now? Is that what you're saying?
That's, yes. That's,
okay.
It's not, they didn't give the exact value. It's somewhere between 2 and 2.5.
Okay. That's pretty gigantic.
Right. Well, right. And it's undergoing tests right now. Once it hits the actual live patch, I think we'll be able to pretty much run the tests and see it for ourselves. But
previously it was 3 standard deviations, am I
right? Yes. Yes. Let me.
Let's not stay on this too much longer because we.
Okay.
Okay. Well, we'll get back to this.
Okay.
One thing I want to mention. One thing. Just I'm excited, and you guys are going back and forth, and now I get a chance to talk, and so I really love the ability to introduce a bit of a to the audience, especially to the viewers, to the fans, the ability to predict situations. A lot of times you're not able to predict the situation or even make any educated guess on what's going to happen because you just have no idea of how the game is played, of so viewers that are coming from the outside, and especially casters, will be able to provide that vital piece of information, that hook to the game, saying, listen, in this, this part of the map is generally really weak. Only 20% of the time do teams have an ability to come down from 2-on-3 or 3-on-2 or 4-on-5, and giving that ability to try to predict the outcome gives the viewer a chance to be hooked and see, okay, can they pull that out or no? So
Yeah.
I'm really excited if this is actually going to happen. And
Like here, I'll give you an example of something I would love to be simulated in my head, and I would love to have this type of understanding. So Cazadores in our WGLNA qualifiers, they ran this strat on Himmelsdorf. They sent 2 T1s to the hill, the castle, okay? And they're basically looking for baits. Whenever there's a T1 up there, they're obviously going to kill it because it's 2v1. If there's anything that is not a T1, an AMX or a T69, an IS3, whatever it might be, they take their 5 tanks and they charge the western region, okay? And they just go for it. And what I would like to know is if I have 4 defensive tanks that are all tier 8 that are waiting for those tanks, given the amount of time it takes to cross X region, how much hit points do I remove from their team, assuming that I will not be able to prioritize, and assuming that I will be able to prioritize, 2 different scenarios, before they get over there? And how much damage will I do until my tank that was up on the hill is able to get over to me? And I was actually talking with some of the guys. What I would have loved is a map breakdown where it gives all values of where you slow down, or I guess coefficient values of when you slow down and when your regular speed for all tanks, or even when you speed up. And I know that's going to be very, very tough to do because obviously it's based on engine power, based on weight and everything. But at least some sort of chart that does estimates of everything. That's going to be so important because if I'm playing professionally, I need to know exactly how long it takes to get from A1 to A0. Mm-hmm. And then I can sort of find out what it takes from A1 to A5. And that's super important, I think. So, I think Cazadores in those positions did, theoretically incorrect things, but there are a couple things, teams weren't reacting fast enough, and also they weren't getting optimal shots on because they weren't expecting anything like that. It wasn't within their range. So there's a couple things that I saw wrong with a lot of the responses. But overall, it felt like in my gut, in my mind, that Cazadores should have been punished really, really hard, especially for doing that strat twice in a row, or 3 times in a row, I think, in the qualifiers. But they always came out ahead whenever they did that strat. And that really clicked in my mind to say, wow, I really need to see what the punishment factor, I guess, is for moving into blind areas with 5 tanks. Because I know there can be an optimal way to defend against it, and there could be the worst way to defend against it. And I want to see what the optimal way to defend against it is with 4 tanks against 5. How many tanks can I kill? And then I can find a range to which I say, okay, well, this is my tank positioning. This is how it's influencing it, and I can go on from there.
How much actual risk is this move going to cost me?
Correct. Over how much risk it's costing them. Because in my mind, I thought it was, honestly, it was obsolete play. But they were winning with it so ridiculously. And I kind of said it in the Sunday show. I thought they played against the metagame perfectly. But I also felt like they played theoretically incorrect with a lot of their games. But I know Cazadores.
Yes?
Yes.
Yeah.
Rock, paper, scissors.
The reason I see that strat working for them is a mental thing. It's a metagame for sure. That's really all I have to say about that one in particular. But I agree with you. They should lose doing it way more often than they do, and there's reasons why they don't. But there's nothing theoretical there.
Well, all right. Let me go ahead and just jump into a couple questions that we had on the forums where we had a couple more left.
One thing.
You have 30
Andre,
seconds, Soviet. 30 seconds.
We had Sigma 1.3. Now we're moving to Sigma 2.0.
That's right.
Okay.
I think Friction was saying that it was lower is
Right.
worse.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But as a summary on that topic, I'm looking forward to it. I think you guys getting out those statistics in particular would be fantastic. It kind of help set the trends for the game, explain, what the probabilities of different things, which would then let people have different kinds of play styles like you have in poker. This is not the right thing to do, and everybody knows that now because the statistics say it only works 10% of the time, but considering the other team knows that, perhaps it's the right thing to do at this moment. But we have question and answer stuff, right?
Okay, you're done. All right, so these are questions for Gretorp that we got off the forums. So everybody that's watching, usually if we have a special guest on, I put a post in the esports information section or whatever. So you can always post questions directly on there, and I'll make sure to get to them. We'll do another Q&A session like we usually do at the end. But for now, I have two other people that asked questions on the threads. The first one is Junior, who just now showed up in chat. So his first question for you, Gretorp, is please provide the viewers with one con of the T32.
There are no cons of the T32.
Rookhill and Clutch aren't watching. It's okay.
There are no cons
It's
of
okay.
the T32, guys. Zero con. Okay, if you guys don't know what this is about, like, Clutch made a video about the T32, right? It played the first day, and then we didn't play it after that. And he was going over pros and cons, and he listed no cons. So when we came back, I was like, oh, so the T32 has no cons. He's like, no cons. And that's why we keep joking about it. So now for every single time, we're like, oh, I hope the T32 comes out. Do you know why? No cons.
No cons.
No cons. And ever since the first day, we haven't actually seen the T32 clip yet. But I hope it doesn't get edited. I really hope it doesn't get edited because
Soviet
every
thinks the
single
same
time-
thing, actually. He thinks it's the perfect.
I think Soviet might have burst some blood vessels when he saw that video.
I'm just glad that Clutch got the right advice for the IS3. So
There's
his
a
IS3 is
long
dead on.
There's a long period of time where a couple of us would tell Soviet that the T-32 had the best gun at Tier 8 for a really long time, and we were just joking completely. And for a while, he thought we were serious.
I
don't know what it is. It never goes straight
man,
for me.
I don't know what it is. I kept trying and trying and trying. Just. Oh man.
All right, next question.
America.
This is again from Junior. This is his second question.
Okay.
What's your fascination with Tier 1s, and how do you like to play your T1 Cunningham? Hide in a bush and snipe with Browning, or rush across the field with Hispano?
I like Hispano first. My fascination is just the fact that I pub stomp with T1 Cunninghams. I just think it's really hilarious, and I think Rotterdam actually got me really into that. Like he just started, like, because I'm right now training my KV series, my KV1, KV1S, and my IS. Right, I'm trying to get my IS3, and so I've been doing that forever. And Rotterdam's over there playing like Tier 1s and Tier 3s. I'm like, dude, why are you doing that? He's like, just try it. So I hop on, I try it. I'm like, 7 kills. This is awesome. Right? So I start doing that. I was like, oh my God. And then Wargaming sent us gold, 2,000 gold. I was like, oh, okay. Well, what do I do with this? And I looked at convert experience, and it's like 40,000 in my T1 Cunningham. I'm like, sweet Jesus, mother of God, I should do this more often. And that's why I just started playing the T1 Cunningham. I only did it for like a week, but I mentioned whatever it is on broadcasts. And of course, I know everybody's played T1 Cunningham. They know it's the most OP Tier 1, so I talk.
T1 Cunningham is definitely the most OP. If you get past, I think, a 1-skill crew is then when it starts automatically sorting you into Tier 2 battles, because it's a known transgressor of low tiers to twink
so
those things out.
I need to dismiss my crew and stock up a 50%.
Just keep making a new one.
It's still manhandle stuff at Tier 2 as well. Just stay away from T18s.
So the one other question we have is actually a serious question, and it's from Conflict. I know that's surprising, a serious conflict, or a question from Conflict. So his question is, what would it take for the North American scene to overtake the RU scene in terms of who leads? So more specifically, what it means is something happens in Russia, then we're doing it. So he's kind of, I guess he's wondering, he wants it so that when something happens in North America, we're the ones leading with, this
Setting
is how
the
things
standard.
are. Yeah, setting the standard.
Okay.
I don't know how much you can go into that, but what's your opinion of that?
I'm not going to go into it too much. What I can say is my experiences in StarCraft 2 with the Koreans. I don't know if you guys know, but Korea is sort of the mecca of StarCraft in general. They had professional StarCraft since 2000 and I want to say like 2001, something ridiculous. But and ever since then, they've had professional StarCraft matches, $100,000 in a season, and they've just been going. And we've always been behind the Korean scene. And I'm also going to talk about the Dota 2 scene. In that scene, the Chinese rule everything. Like, they are super, super good. They're the ones leading the meta. They're the ones leading prize pool money. It's just dominant. And the major thing, it's a correlation. I'm not going to say it's causation, but the major thing that you see is all of the teams acting like it's a job, acting like it's their number one priority. They take it seriously. They go into games. For instance, if you're playing professional soccer, right? You're not going to say, okay, well, practice is going to be just play games, go play games. No, that's incredibly inefficient. You have to do drills, right? You have to do your cardio. You have to run through some cones. You have to hone your shot. You have to find the place where you feel most comfortable, because it's human stuff doing things that are really, really complicated and almost impossible to perfect everything. And I think that's the number one thing that needs to happen. Like, things need to be taken very seriously. You need to go into it and be prepared to learn, really push your mind to learn more and more stuff. I feel like, well, I don't know about World of Tanks, but at least the North American scene for StarCraft, the foreign scene for Dota 2, they're just really far behind because we don't look to learn. Even when we think we learn everything, we don't try to learn even more. And I think that's a really, really hard problem to get over. And it's a compilation of things, social issues, of course, but also some people, World of Tanks, StarCraft, Dota, it's just a hobby. Even if they're playing at pro level, it's just a hobby.
Yeah. Well, I think we should definitely start having Soviet drive through cones, because his driving is just so terrible that I think if we put some cones down on Himmelsdorf, maybe he'll get a little bit better at the game.
Says the guy that barely hits me in Artie if we practice. What are you talking about, James?
Well, I don't hit you on purpose. I'm just being nice.
Okay.
All right. Well,
Gretorp, do you think World of Tanks has it?
That esports
It.
Yes.
Oh.
The it.
I think it does. It has a lot of capacity too. I had a lot of trepidation going into it. I was actually thinking about is this the right thing for me? Because I really love StarCraft. I mean, I've been doing it since 1999, right? So obviously I have a big affiliation with the game. But after playing it, after even watching it, I geek out over it. A lot of the stuff. Sometimes I think it's boring as hell and it sucks, but I also think sometimes StarCraft is boring as hell. But I think the speed of games is actually something really, really cool. The fact that you can only go 10 minutes in a game, and that there is pretty constant action, or at least action before the actual battle starts, which is probably the most important thing, right? Like, that's what I'm focusing on. Yeah, it's some teams are able to win the game before even a shot is fired. I think that's something that's so fascinating that should be looked into, and how they actually start positioning themselves. I find it really, really exciting. I think 100% it's the commentators to really bring that, and that's something I hope to eventually bring to the cast. For now, of course, I'm learning as much as possible, but I think that's so exciting to see them, sidestepping. It's like a fencing match, They're not really poking each other that much, but they are gearing up to get ready to poke you, and that's where the brilliance normally happens.
Cool. So that was all the main questions that I had for you online here. Let's go into the last topic that I had for discussion, and we'll spend at most 10 minutes on this because we've talked about a lot of other things. And I think this is a good question, especially with all the information that's been coming up recently. So math. So you look at a lot of games like World of Warcraft, I know somebody's gonna hate me saying that. Guild Wars, some of these like other MMO type games, even StarCraft, where you know exactly this thing builds in 21 seconds, or the damage of this ability is this plus my stat plus this, and you know like all the specifics. So you look at things like World of Warcraft, where there was the most DPS from this exact spec with these exact items. What do you guys think? Do you think it'd be good for wargaming to kind of like lift that veil and give us these specifics so people could get down to that point where this tank with this exact setup with this exact crew is probably the best setup for that tank? Or do you think that still needs to be kind of covered up a little bit and make it so it's just more players' preference rather than the exact science of this being good? So we'll go around the circle with that question. Sobi doesn't seem like he understands it, so let's start with you, David. Do you think lifting that veil is a good idea, knowing all the specifics of the math?
Simple question. Do I think transparency in game mechanics is important or valuable? Question is simple, answer is not. Yes. I would love to have it. However, if there's something in there that can be abused, that's going to be found pretty quickly. And that could screw things up pretty bad for us. But ultimately, if it's there anyways and somebody collects enough data and figures it out, well, then they have a pretty significant advantage. I think transparency is always a good idea. But I don't know it all for sure, so
cool.
It's hard to give a solid answer to that.
Let's go to Gretorp next. We'll skip over Soviet because we want to get somebody smart with a good answer on math.
That's
so Gretorp,
true.
you take over. What do you think about that?
So I think transparency and I guess what we have right now is the same given infinite time, right? Like assuming that we have infinite time, everything's going to be figured out. Someone's going to go through everything. It happens in every single game. Take, for example, 2D fighting games, Street Fighter, that kind of stuff. Nothing's explicitly given, but I know for certain that there is a book with every single frame, hitbox, invincibility frames, everything about every character is given there because enough tests have been done. I think that is... so what you're basically saying is, should we have a lag time between transparency and people trying to find out the game? And I would say probably not. I prefer to have that transparency 100% of the time. I don't like that lag time because what it does is it stagnates professional play, in my opinion, just because the barrier to enter all of a sudden becomes a lot higher because I haven't played so many games. I would love these new teams that form from pubs to just be like, hey, this is the optimal rate. This is the optimal lineup. Let's go with this, right? And they actually put the time into it, or you can, they put the time into it there, rather than okay, well, let's shoot 1,000 rounds into this AMX 5100 and see what the average damage is, or let's do this or that. Really tedious things that really don't make up good practice time, right?
I think a good example of this was about a year ago, maybe more than that. Somebody went to the trouble of figuring out or scraping out of the game files. I'm not sure if it's there. Been through myself, but they figured out all of the different camouflage ratios and then built spreadsheets that allowed you to plug in different numbers and say, like, if this tank is looking at you and this tank has X view range, then he can see you at Y distance. And there was a bunch of other factors you could plug into that spreadsheet, and number of bushes, all that stuff. And that revolutionized our ability to build. Junior confirms camo factors are still in the files. Sometimes they take them out, sometimes they put them back in. I don't know about camo factors, but sometimes they do it with other statistics. Anyways, it allowed me and some of the other people to design strategies beyond a shadow of a doubt, knowing that my 50-2 is going to get here before anything else can possibly get here, which gives me control of this whole area of the map because they can't see him unless they get within proxy range 50 meters. And if they get that close, given this bush being so far in the open, they're going to get shot by all these other tanks I have sitting behind a hill. So we were able to build these strategies that allowed us to box people into certain areas if they tried to take out our spotters, they got hammered by tanks. And in the meantime, if they just sat where they were slowly getting spotted out and artilleried out. And it put the game in a position where the other team stood no chance unless they had any understanding of those camo mechanics or unless we messed up. So that's kind of what you're talking about there. If we have those spreadsheets and other teams don't, and they have no idea that they exist, their barrier of entry is higher because they still have to even figure out that this game is being played. So I think your argument, and I would agree with it, is that all that data being upfront allows people to... Everybody has a more even playing field.
Correct. Now, the things that do worry me, I will say, is... One, you have to, if you're going to release all the stats, you need to 100% balance your maps and be a lot more active in the map scene as wargaming, right? You need to do that because what's going to happen is abuses will be found, and it's not going to be fun to play on ladder because you're going to know, well, in this place, I just win. It's not even a question. I just win. Mm-hmm. So balancing needs to be a super huge important factor, and maybe they don't have the resources to do that. I don't know, but that's definitely something that you have to think about. On top of that, I think the biggest issue is going to be mods. Once you have a huge transparency, all of a sudden at the top tiers, it's not fun anymore because your skill and your knowledge isn't going to be reflected because there's some better calculator that is doing all the work for these idiots, right? Like that just go into it and they're like, oh, I know how to use this mod, and then they profit like crazy.
Yeah.
And I don't like that for the public scene.
There are already mods that calculate that data for you. I've seen a crosshair that dictates whether or not you'll be spotted when you fire based on the available information. It can't do it perfectly because that mod has no access to the data from the other team. But if you have everybody who could possibly spot you is being spotted by the enemy, is being spotted by your team, then the mod will be accurate and it will tell you you will be spotted or you won't be spotted. There's a lot of other factors that I've seen get tossed over to mods. So that's kind of the risk I was referring to before. The transparency would open up other loopholes, and unless Wargaming gets onto those very quickly, it gets really messy and could kill everything. But as you said, somebody's working on it anyways, especially when they start seeing things like $100,000 league prize. Somebody is working on it. So it needs to be addressed now rather than later.
I agree.
No matter what.
Soviet, you know a lot about the Russian scene and how statistically affected mods and all that kind of stuff. What are your comments on this?
Mods.
When everything's transparent, you know that.
The thing that, well, I think we're seeing the same same thing with Russian players, and of course they have some of the best teams there now. All the getting signed up with the pro teams and whatnot. They are very, like Gretorp is saying, that's what's separating the good teams from the pro teams is your approach to the game. It's a job. It's not it has to go beyond just being a hobby, beyond just being a game. So they take it serious. They definitely know everything that's available. The one thing I want to point out, though, is as we transition into this, is there has to be a fine balance between the amount of information that's open and the amount of information that's closed for the exploits. And the other thing is, while the barrier of entry may seem high, to players that just want to play and they start playing and they're learning the things as they play, that barrier of entry might look less, smaller than bigger. On the other hand, if they get into the game and they're like, oh, you need to study, this book here. Why don't you read this? This is World of Tanks. These are all the values. These are all the timings. It kind of becomes don't you think that it becomes the opposite? It becomes even a bigger barrier of entry, that you have all of this stuff that you need to know if you absolutely want to play, pro scene, let's say.
That's kind of my feelings on it is, complete transparency makes it into either being, I have to know everything to be the best at it because I need to know the exact statistics for everything, versus just, me as a player being good, having an idea on how everything works, and, using my own player skill to place shots in specific ways, to position myself in certain ways, use experience to place myself as a player. And personally, I think in this game, I like there being some transparency, but I don't know if I want to go crazy with everything, and making everything just down to a You sit here, you sit here, you sit here, and you wait. And these are the perfect positions for you to be in all the time. And I think that takes out a lot of the organic feel to how tournaments play. You sound like you have.
I don't think that's possible in this game. I think you can get to a place where these are the best places to be objectively, but you add in metagame, and that gets totally different.
That's
you
true.
know, I start intercepting you while you're going there, or we blind fire it because you're in the best spot in the game and we know it. So light that bush up because they're there. Metagame will balance it out, and I don't think there is such a thing for us in particular as just experience that has taught us how to play the game. We learned, you know, you and I, especially when we were starting out. One of the first things I did was like day 2, we were playing the game. I played day 1 and I was like, I don't understand why I'm getting spotted and they're not. So I went and read the wiki. And from then, we've played this game the whole time, knowing a lot of mechanics under the hood that probably at least 90% of the people out there don't know. So our experience is heavily influenced by the amount of transparent data we were given to begin with.
That's true. That's very true. All right, well, I think it's an interesting topic, and I'm sure we'll see Wargaming doing a lot more with it, obviously with a lot of the aiming stuff we've been seeing with exact calculations, so it'll be really interesting to see where they go with that and if they end up, you know, opening it up quite a bit more information-wise. And I guess we'll have to see where it goes.
A follow-up question to Gretorp about maps, though. So, are you saying that maps need to be rather, sorry to say, but boring in design, just like completely symmetrical?
No. I think for metagame is going to be a big thing, but let's take something like Magic the Gathering. There are some super OP things in there, but you have some super OP things that counter that too, or sidestep it. And I think there are ways to have overpowered stuff, but also ways to sidestep those things so that you don't have to engage. Like there are definitely ways to make the map, and I don't think I'm experienced enough to really know. But you can make it so big where mobility is more important than a single position, and you can make a position so strong, yet it can, you know, be flanked. I don't know. I don't know the actual details, but I don't think they need to be boring. They can be extremely complex, and you can just make the barrier to understand the map really high. And then because of that, you have this progression in the map, which is really cool. And it happens all the time when you see new maps, right? You play it one way, and then you said, damn, in 6 months, I'm going to be looking at my strat, and I'll be like, what the hell was I ever thinking? Because I played like an idiot. I think that's something that's super important, but we do need to, when we get these maps that never go away, that always stick around, those have to be kind of curtailed to not be so positionally imbalanced. And I'm sure you guys can think of some maps right now that are in the map pools that are, you know, highly advantaged for north-south or east or west or whatever it might be.
Yeah, there's definitely weird things going on with the maps, and sometimes with the mode. The mode factors in with the map as well,
Yeah.
right? Like, we won't keep going with that. Somebody did ask a question earlier.
Yeah,
Somebody did ask a question earlier. What's your favorite map to watch so far, Gretorp?
That's a good question.
Surprise.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and, we're done with the discussions for now, so we'll go ahead and do questions. So if anybody has questions, please post it in chat.
Yeah, I really don't know.
We'll do that for like 5 minutes.
I can say what my favorite map to play on is.
What's that?
It's any city map.
Any city map. There's only one true city map in the game. It's Himmelsdorf.
And you know why? It's because I'm playing KV1, KV1S, and IS. I'm going
Well,
up
there you
to
go.
IS3.
You don't like
Great
long
choices.
distance.
That's why.
You don't like long
Great
distances.
choices.
We've
We'll get
all
along.
been there. I don't know. I'd say, as much as I hate playing on this map a lot of the times, and it frustrates me how random it can be, I'd say it's often pretty darn fun to watch Himmelsdorf play, because there's always going to be a brawl, and upsets are far more likely on Himmelsdorf than anything else I've seen.
Cool. Let's see if we have I don't know if we had anybody actually collecting questions.
They're all
Let's
making
see.
fun of us.
The entire time.
Yeah, especially
They're all gonna laugh at you.
Especially me. I think they were making fun of you because I actually shut you down a couple times today.
what goes around.
Like the man. That's right.
Shut himself down just then. Questions.
Here's one from Kayla TJO for Gretorp. Do you think the power creep of mediums and new clip / high rate of fire tanks has killed the classic tanks? I know you're kind of.
So
I'm not sure.
auto loaders over standard.
Yeah. Do you think that's going to be a problem essentially, like having a bunch of 5100s because the IS3 just can't perform? Do you think that? And it does seem to be like patch to patch. They keep adding new tanks. What do you think of that increase in power in tanks that get added? T69 being the most recent addition.
Power creep.
I'm not sure. I've been saying on cast like the biggest part of when autoloader the biggest disadvantage to autoloaders is their time of reload plus the time that it takes to unload their clip, like whatever that value is, and then you add that to the timer. That's going to be their worst case scenario because obviously that means they have one clip to fire out, but also you're not letting them like reload. You know what? Am I making sense? Am I not making sense?
I think you're making sense, mostly.
I think that timing is like super, super brutal, but I don't know if like an IS3 or a KV5 can really take advantage of that.
You're talking
At this
about
point,
like a 5100 and having to wait. Like it fires all its shots and now it's got 45 seconds that it's just
Correct.
a
Correct. So
giant meat shield.
It's essentially comparing DPMs between the two, but instead of minute, you're taking the amount of time it would take the autoloader to fire all of its rounds and reload, and that's the frame of time you're comparing.
That's your timing window.
damage.
So right, like it's 10 seconds. Is it 10 seconds or 9 seconds for them to reload between rounds for a 5100?
For a 5100,
5100 is 2.75.
yeah.
Oh shit! I'm
between
so
actual
terrible.
shots, yeah.
Okay, so you add up all that time, and then you're around 60, maybe 70 seconds, since they're not going to always unload everything all at once. So about a minute, that's when a lot of your engagement should start. And then you divide that between the IS3 numbers. You're looking at a good amount of time. Or it doesn't have to be IS3, it could be KV5, WZ-130s, whatever you want. But I don't know. I don't know if that's enough time to really punish autoloaders right now. And if you do want to punish them, I say increase the load time. I know it's already ridiculously long, but that will increase the skill cap of those autoloaders as well, because their shots are going to be even more important.
We did see it before when we only had 5100 and 1390s. Their autoloader clip time is pretty long, and a team that would bring a lot of autoloaders would suffer in the long run because they would run out, we would corner them, game over. 69 changed the game quite a bit because it does have quite a quick reload time between clips. Yes, it only has 4 shots, potential of 950 damage, I think, on average per the whole clip, 4 shots, and but it reloads. It can stay in the engagement because it reloads in like 25 seconds.
Yeah,
That's 3
like,
shots.
they cover each other almost, right? Like
Right,
they
yes.
hedge each other's
If you
load times.
stagger, if you stagger the
Yeah.
load times, it's pretty much invincible. The 69s can outdamage you, and nothing you can do. If you push into them, like you were saying, the great, earlier we were talking about Himmelsdorf. If they're brushing us, and there's 2 tanks in position to defend, let's say, those 2 69s, if they stagger their shots and they keep clipping and shooting while the tanks are coming at them and not taking, defensive positions, they'll go through 3 to 4 tanks easily. It's just an example, but so. Perhaps we'll see changes though, because 8.6 and all.
Yeah, I would love to see changes, honestly. I think autoloaders do seem super, super strong. If I had to nerf them, just theoretically, if I had to nerf them, it would definitely be something to do with reload time or something to do with their traverse speed. Maybe. I don't know. It's really
would
difficult
say
for me to say.
the largest point of balance for autoloaders is the intra-clip, the internal reload time. So when you're firing shots with a 69, it's 2 seconds flat. When you're firing shots with a 5100, it's 2.5 to 2.75. One of those is 1390 and one of those, whatever. The point is, if you get several 69s in one place, and they're like 100 meters, 200 meters away from you, they can all rep out all of their shots in 6 seconds, roughly, because there's 2 in between. Yeah, 6.
Yes.
That kills 1 tank at least. If it's 3 69s, that's 1 to 2 tanks in 6 seconds. And then they pull back, and if you can't get to them before they clip, or rather, if you can't kill them before they clip, that's another 6 seconds of pain you're looking at. With the 5100, it's a totally different ballgame. It takes you a lot longer to get your shots off. A lot of tanks end up firing like once for every 2 of yours, or once for every 3 of yours, which gives you an advantage in the beginning, but then as time goes on, all of a sudden now the 5100 is reloading for 47 seconds or whatever. And during that period of time, single fire tanks like the IS-3, they wreck you. So
how about something like random
both.
recoil? That meaning, you know how there is recoil and you can turn it off? How about for autoloaders, you would have recoil, and it randomly misplaces you back in a certain area where you were originally at, and you change the aim speed to balance it.
Making it more inaccurate because they're firing so fast.
Correct.
Aim speed is another interesting method of doing it, because obviously that affects
because then
how quickly
you would have
can
to
fire.
readjust it to a place where you thought it was going to be, think it's going to be. The 2 seconds, right? Like what you're trying to do is make it so that your reaction is a shorter time frame. So instead of having, right now it's like you shoot and you're just waiting for that reload, the 2 seconds. Whereas we want to shove that maybe to 1.5 seconds. So it's like you wait for the recoil to stop, and then 1.5 seconds, that means you have half second to re-aim, and then maybe you have a 20% reduction in aiming. So it's, slightly larger of a reticle.
Introduces a bit more skill into it rather than
Correct.
just clicking 4
Then
times
just
and
derping,
running
right?
away.
Like,
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. We'll see. I know it has been brought up already numerously that autoloaders, pretty much teams are trying to cram as many autoloaders as they can, and that they make the game. One thing, I think Wargaming likes it because it speeds up the game. But from the opposite end, it becomes rather, one-dimensional.
Anything that speeds up tank destruction also slows down strategy, though. Because, if I drove around a corner before, and I knew where 3 of the 5 enemy tanks were, we're talking tier 8 proper, this scenario, you're going to get hit at most for 2 times the alpha of the biggest tank, like IS-3s or something, right? As of now, you go poke in that corner, and it's like, oh, it's 2 69s, and I'm dead. Like that. And then before your team can even do anything, they get reloaded. So, I don't know. Maybe view range is a good way to nerf it too. Right now, I think we can all agree the 5100 was pretty balanced before.
Yeah.
The 69 is what's just not balanced. And as much as I love playing it's ridiculous. It fires nearly 1,000 damage too quickly. It pens like a god. It's really small in terms of how much damage it does. It's a pretty compact tank, which is a big downfall to like the 32 or some of these other tanks. They're huge and they're easy to hit. The face is pretty bouncy, and it sees 400 meters.
And huge
Like,
depression.
why
and
bring
elevation.
anything else, right?
Yeah.
But maybe if this thing only sees like 300, well, I could be blind or I could have autoloaders. Pick one.
Yeah.
Especially when 8.6 comes out, because that thing is nasty accurate in 8.6.
Yeah.
Whereas now it drifts a little bit side to side.
All right, well, we'll take one more question, and then we'll go and cut this off because this has been like an hour and 40 minutes. This is like the longest Tank Talk episode ever.
Gretorp is
Thanks.
interesting.
I know. He
Thanks for
is.
sticking
He
around
is.
oh,
Thank you.
God, stop it. Oh, you're so nice.
Now I expect a weekly statistic report just a bit.
Yes, sir.
So the last question I have here, we're going to take from Whiskey Dodd because I like this question. How hard did Rue have to lobby to be able to wear his hat?
Not hard at all.
Really? You guys just let him do it?
Yeah, our producer actually used to wear those type of hats all the time, and he's all for it. So he's like, "Yeah, wear the hat, man." He actually came onto the set without the hat. He's like, "Where's the hat?" He's like, "Okay."
Secretly, he also has a gigantic tattoo on the top of his head.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
Yes.
just not viewable.
It's a giant Hello Kitty. I saw it. It was Tuxedo Sam. And it's actually detailed very nicely. I'm trying to get Rue to take off his hat, but he just won't do it.
Yeah. We tried to get him to do it at in Texas too. He just
If you guys didn't know, also the hair is actually attached to the hat. That's another thing.
really,
Oh.
yeah. So it's like
Yeah.
a wig in the hat.
Exactly. He has the whole thing going.
Nice. All right, well, Gretorp, thank you very
Gotta
much
get
for
relics
joining
that
us.
number.
Hey.
Oh!
Don't hate on the
Goes
head.
around, comes around.
Don't hate on the head. So thank you very much for joining us, Gretorp. We really appreciate you coming on. Hopefully we'll get you on another time, especially if we have any kind of math things. I'll know to come grab you because I know you want to talk about it. And
Hell yeah.
we will obviously be watching you during the Wargaming League North America casting. We loved
Thank
it
you.
so far. So yeah, thanks very much for being here, and we look forward to seeing more what you do.
Thanks, guys.
Yep. Then so again with me was Soviets on that side, Nagatron. Thanks again for joining me, guys, and everybody else have a good night.